Hi, everyone. Welcome back to our podcast, No More Secrets. As always, I'm your niece, Katie Albrecht.
And I'm your Aunt Mary Albrecht, and we are so happy to have a return therapist on from season 2. Carolyn Parker you're only going to see her from the back because we have some camera issues here and stuff like that, but we're true professionals, really we are. So Carolyn works at Youth and Family Counseling, who we are spokespeople for, and she was on in season 2 when we started inviting guests on, but then we had the pandemic and we stopped doing as many guests, just mostly remote and things like that. But she was very kind to volunteer her time to come back on as a clinical side of some of our topics, and so we're excited to talk about the episode from last week. But before we do that, Carolyn, I asked her to share her pedigree, and she said she's a purebred dachshund.
That's right.
But beyond being a dachshund, you're also a therapist, right?
I am,
And you've
yes.
been doing it for how long? And
I have been a therapist for 3.5 years. I am a licensed clinical professional counselor.
Okay.
It's a mouthful.
LPCP, right?
LCPC.
CPC, got it,
Correct.
yeah.
Yes. So fully licensed in the state of Illinois.
And also you said like your 4th career or something, but you've had a lot of people experience and a lot of managerial experience and just life experience, right?
That's what happens when you get older, huh?
And well, it can,
Yeah.
if you make use of your time. But do you enjoy this profession?
I do.
Compared
I really
to,
think it was what I was meant to do.
and I feel like that was what you said the last time. It was just really, and that was a few years ago already, or 2 years ago, and so, and here you are still feeling good about it. So
Maybe I've been a therapist for 4 years then. I don't know.
That sounds right.
what is
Yeah,
it?
something like that.
2021? Yeah, I thought you said 4 years or so. Yeah, now.
Something like that. I
Yeah.
don't know.
But-
I lost count. I do love it.
You love it? Do you get burnt
I
out
do.
with it at all, or do you? It depends.
You have your days, kind
Sure,
of like
like
anything
any job.
else. Some days are heavier than others,
Yeah.
and some days you're more tired than others.
And
And
so,
then some days are just awesome.
How
Most
was-
days are pretty awesome.
How was
Yeah.
it during the pandemic? Did you guys have to do a lot of like remote sessions and stuff? Or
Every session was remote.
every session was remote? Wow.
Yes.
And was that easier, you think, from the patients, or for you, or was that harder? It was like just adding a different dynamic to all of it.
I think for me, being older and such a dependence on technology,
Sure. Yeah.
it was really kind of daunting, the idea that I was going to be using technology, and I didn't like the idea of using technology in therapy. I wanted to be with my client in the same room.
Yeah.
And to my surprise, it really has been a godsend, especially since this has lasted so long. Not only does it sometimes actually work out better to be on Zoom, but it's sort of a different quality of a relationship, but it works really, really well, and it's definitely better than nothing,
Okay.
than no
Yeah.
therapy, for sure.
Do you guys think after the pandemic you'll still maybe do like a hybrid, like offer
Absolutely.
it for people that want it?
Yeah,
That's good.
absolutely. I think it's changed therapy forever because we've all learned that it really is effective. And especially for people in rural areas who don't really have access to a lot of mental health care, this has provided them a whole opening of choices.
I'm sure. Yeah, you don't have to drive a long ways to get to you.
Exactly. And that's another thing that's been really convenient for clients is that, especially parents with kids and things like that, or maybe they, work late or something and they don't have time to drive to our facility, and so they can just be at home and they can log on and it works.
Like if you're running late and you can't make it, it's like, hey, can I have a link?
Yeah,
Or like if the
absolutely.
weather's bad, right? Or something like that, or you're not feeling well, you could still, like a couple times with my therapist there, I had such a bad stomach ache, but I just sat on my phone and like laid on my back and Zoomed with her. So it was better than nothing. But you can't just, drive there with a stomach ache, throw up out the window and then go lay down on the floor and I mean, you could, but
Right. I mean, yeah, you could do that too. I mean,
so
see,
it was convenient.
and you had a dog with yours, right?
Yeah, I have the therapy
Therapist
dog
dog?
that
Oh,
is
Odin.
there.
Does he join in
Odin.
on your sessions too, or is that just it was whose was it?
For Christine.
For Christine,
Yeah,
yes. Yeah.
she's the director there, and she has
Yeah.
a therapy dog that was there since a puppy, right?
He has been, yes. And,
Like-
and we
Cool.
all love Odin like our own.
Yeah.
He, depending upon how hard he's working, sometimes he's in pretty big demand. So if he's available and my client wants him in the room, then yes, I've had him in my room many times.
Cool.
And
I
you
give
know,
him lots of bones, so he loves to come see me.
He likes you the best, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
and even Lorraine knew him since being a puppy, and
Oh, cool.
but then Christine said it's funny because he knows exactly when people are having lunch, and he wants out of the room because he wants to go to where you're having lunch.
Yeah, he knows. He knows who gives him scraps and who lets him lick the bowl, and right. He
I like
knows.
that. He's a professional dog as well as therapy dog.
He's a great dog. He's awesome. He's getting a little sister.
Oh, really? In the
Or
office?
Actually, let's see. What are we calling her? We're calling her his. Well, Christine would be the grandma of this little dog. So Odin would be like a surrogate parent.
Oh, because her daughter's getting a dog.
Bucket.
Okay, yeah.
Cool.
So
Yeah.
we're going to get to have her around.
Why? Where's the daughter?
Well, Christine's training the puppy part.
Oh, for therapy? For being a therapy
I'm not
dog?
quite sure how if that's the case or not.
What kind of dog? Do
It's
you
the
know?
same lab, but not white.
Oh, I'm gonna go there.
That reaction. Did you
I know.
the same?
Yeah,
That's
it's
such a beautiful.
Oh, it's going to be so great.
It's a beautiful dog, though. Have you met?
I have
Odin?
met. Yes, I met Odin. I couldn't remember his name before, but
Yeah.
yeah, no, he's a good dog, and honestly, I think that could draw a lot of people into your guys' facility
safe,
it
like-
feels better. It feels more homey, you know.
Yeah.
It is amazing how they know when a person needs them.
Oh, nice.
So he could be laying on the floor in the corner, and he senses when a client needs him, and all of a sudden he'll walk over, quietly get on the couch, put his head on their lap
Oh,
or their shoulder.
That's so sweet.
He is really something.
wow.
He really is.
Well, what were you gonna say?
He doesn't do that with me.
Yet.
It's
Yeah.
because you're just so happy talking about all the things.
I am. I'm happy. Christine says I have a big wall up, and I just don't ever want to delve in. And she's like, "When are you gonna let your guard down?" Because I'm always like this. So Odin's over there.
Odin's confused and is like, "Well, she's good.
Yeah,
Seems fine to
She
me.
doesn't have any problems."
He's like, I can't get over that fence.
Right. It's a pretty tall one, yeah.
That's a good one.
Well,
Anyway,
so if you guys want to go to therapy and get a therapy dog, go to Youth and Family Counseling, right?
in Libertyville, Illinois.
Yeah, it can really help you guys out. But I think to get into the topic, so if you guys haven't heard the episode before this, the Learning to Communicate featuring Dr. Jordan Leisure, we're going to be talking about that a little bit and just kind of hearing Carolyn's perspective on it because she listened to the episode and just hearing that clinical side of all the stuff that Jordan went through. So it's the episode before this, so if you guys want to take a listen to that beforehand. But I guess to start, what did you think of it? So you heard the whole episode?
I did.
Cool. What did you think of Jordan's story or her personality or whatever?
Well, she's relatable, first of all,
Oh, yeah.
and very accessible.
I like that.
Yeah, she knows herself really, really well, and she isn't afraid to talk about all sides of herself, which was refreshing and genuine.
Okay. That's really good to hear. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, and I think that she was really courageous, very brave to share some of those details
yeah.
of what she experienced.
Yeah, just really went through a lot. Like, just attracted a lot of negative male attention, positive and negative, but definitely, she mentioned how she developed early. She was tall. She looked like she was in college when she was in 8th grade, and just gorgeous too, and just the men just, I don't know, didn't know how to have good boundaries, starting with the stalker.
She may not have noticed,
or she might. I mean, she
right?
she was
like
18.
She didn't
right.
notice either, and we're all so different when we're 18 and 17. We're so naive, and when older men are not naive.
No, they know,
and they know.
So this guy that hit on her, really became her stalker, he had been in the Marines, so he was 28 years old by the time Jordan was a freshman. And he was like a sophomore or something.
Yeah, really creepy.
And so is that? I mean, yeah, that the age difference between 28 and 18 is huge. Is that correct compared to like when I was 28? I met my man who was 42. But
Right.
by then you're kind of evolved more. You're not 18, so.
Right.
And
10 years at that age, 18 to 28, is a bigger gap than
28 to 38.
28 to 38 or 38 to 48.
okay, yeah.
Absolutely, because number one, our brains are not fully developed until we're 25 to 27.
Is that for females or for males as well?
Males, it's like 26 to 27. Females, it's 25 to 26.
Okay.
So that's why
The frontal
25
lobe.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So that's the first thing. You know, there's information that may not be connected or that we might know, but we don't really know quite yet.
Okay.
And then, of course, when at 21, alcohol becomes legal. And it's not legal for an 18-year-old.
And so that skews things too, right?
That can, that can be a factor for sure. But certainly by the time a man is 28 years old, most men by that age have quite a bit of experience with sex.
And then also he was in the Marines, so he really lived a worldly life long
he
before
lived
going
a lot
to
of life.
college.
Yeah, I think she said like he lived a lot of life, I think is what she said. And yeah, absolutely.
So he knew exactly what he was doing when
Yes,
he
did.
targeted her, didn't he?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. That's why, statutory rape in the state is a law, and I know it's 17 in the state here of Illinois, but it's because when you're 20 or 21 or over 18, you're supposed to know that women are more naive, women are more innocent
At that age?
at that age, typically, right? I mean,
Right.
unless something goes askew.
Okay.
You said in this state, statutory rape is 17. Is it different from state to state? I know that it can be different in different countries, or am I just making that up? Do you know?
It's different in different countries, and I
Okay.
think it's different in different states, but I really don't know because I practice here in Illinois, and
Sure.
I'm licensed in Illinois, so I make it a point to know what the laws are here,
No, that makes sense. Yeah.
but I don't know
Okay.
what they are in other states.
So when somebody starts talking in the we vernacular, like how he said, people don't understand us, and they weren't even a couple, is that a big red flag for a woman if some guy is starting to say, I know you, and we are this and we are that? I mean, what are the red flags? Like she said, it was when he started showing up outside her classroom,
Right.
unannounced.
Right.
That's strange, right? I mean, on a college campus?
Yes, he was not going to that college. It's very strange to show up on a college campus if you don't go to that school,
No, wait. No,
or you don't teach at that school, or you don't speak at that school, or
yeah.
Wait,
Wait.
how did she say they met again?
Now,
I'm trying to remember.
bowling. So on the on the different, I do that every episode, on the different leagues. So they'd have different colleges would have compete against each other.
did he go to school there?
But I think he went to school there. It was her fiance that was.
That was the bowler. That he was a famous bowler, right?
He was a famous bowler, but this guy was also on the bowling team.
Oh, so maybe he just came to school late, kind of came to the party older.
He did after the Marines.
yeah.
And this
I
is
think I missed
confusing.
that.
Oh, that
Well, because
makes
we
sense.
don't say names and we didn't want to say names, so it becomes hard to
Yeah.
distinguish them. But I think he was a freshman when she was looking at schools, and as a scholarship bowler. She went to the different teams.
He was an untraditional freshman.
I remember that now.
And then remember he reached out to her.
He was very kind to her and wanted her to come visit.
He started right away before she even got there.
Yeah, that's kind of stocky right there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And started emailing her.
And that whole conversation about we.
Yeah.
That, even if we're older and someone we're dating is talking about we, there is no such thing. Like, I feel a certain way. I think a certain way. What do you think? You think a certain way. We now, he's speaking for two people, and nobody has the right or the ability to even speak for someone else unless that person gives them permission.
So, like, if you're out with a couple couples and you have this one person saying, well, we feel this way, kind of thing.
I was thinking that too, because you hear that with couples a lot, where they say, "Oh, well, we're doing this," or "We're not talking to this person," or it's like in their family or something.
Are you saying that that's kind of unhealthy, if depending on?
Well, I think it needs to be a little bit more clear, like who the we is, right? So if you've been married for several years, or even if you're dating, and the two of you agree that you're not going to talk to this person, and then you're telling somebody that you're not, we're not talking to that person.
Yeah.
You're not speaking for them. You're just stating what the two of you have agreed to.
Instead of never having agreed to it and just speaking for them and
or saying to them, we don't talk to those people anymore, or something like directly or something.
Which is, that's kind of what it sounded like to me, was that he was speaking for her to her.
And he was, and it creeped her out even, because she remembers that to this day, him saying stuff like...
So she got a feeling somewhere that it wasn't okay, but it wasn't enough. Like, she didn't listen to it, right? Like many of us don't when we're 17 or 18, because we don't know what that voice inside of us...
Don't have enough experiences.
Absolutely.
You kind of have to learn as you go, and if you have never experienced something like that before, how do you know that it's... bad,
right?
So I've known Jordan since she was 14, and her mom is one of my very best friends, and so known her for 30 years, the mom. Well, Jordan too. And I remember this whole thing with, she's got a stalker, and I'm like, what's a stalker? Like, because that was so many years ago. And then she kind of explained it to me and whatever, and then I remember when she came home from college, she was afraid to go out of her house. I mean, she had her fiance there, but she was like, without him around, she was afraid. So it must have gotten pretty bad. She again didn't get into the details, but
I'm just so happy that she's in the place that she's in now.
Yeah,
because she's very settled. She knows herself. She seems like she's living the life that she really has always wanted. And I love that she didn't give up.
Right.
Even though she thought she was a spinster at 35. That was so cute.
Wasn't that cute?
Yeah. It's like, 35, really?
Is this how it's going to end? It's going to end with that abuser guy. It's like, I just better... Remember she mentioned getting cats? Just bring in the cats.
She did. No offense to you, Mary. Yeah.
Yeah, bring in 7 cats. Come on.
Right.
Or any others. Anyway, so that led... So the stalker was at the same time as the star bowler from another school, and he was doing things that most bowlers hadn't done. Like, he had got on Jeopardy, meaning he wasn't on Jeopardy, but his name was on Jeopardy for some of his accomplishments.
Yeah,
and then
it sounds like he broke a lot of bowling rules, or like what had been done at the time.
The ceilings,
and he took it to a whole new level.
And so that's how their relationship started. And I wonder about that from a therapist point of view. Again, not specifically about Jordan, because you don't know her, at all. I mean, you just listened to her once. But just in general, when you meet somebody famous, let's say, that's famous in your circles, and your whole life is just wow, and parties and accolades and achievements and all that, I would think that that's not a realistic way to get to know somebody, because you don't have any of the downs that go with it.
Seems like everything's heightened.
Yeah, it's just it's so glamorous.
It's like The Bachelor, right?
Okay.
Good point.
talk. I don't watch that, but I think it's...
I will understand those.
Well, I don't watch
got
it either,
this.
But something
people-
like that, it's so...
It's obviously different because it was just the two of them, and he wasn't dating 20 women to try to find one to marry. But the fantasy-ish,
Yeah.
They
like
do-
wow part of it, like who dates and gets on a jet and goes to an island, right? That's like The Bachelor, right?
Right.
And the same thing with this is, first of all, they were apart. They weren't in the same
Campus, right?
community, right?
Right.
And it's alluring.
It is.
Right.
It's
And
always
it's-
wonderful when you're together.
Yeah,
then.
and
Yeah.
it's nothing about you. It's all about them. Mm-hmm. So that kind of skews it a little bit too. But it's not to say that can't work. I mean, that can work. People who aren't celebrities marry celebrities, and that works.
It can
But
work.
it can work. It's really up to the couple.
But I think
in-
it was
in
because
any time-
of the
any
lack
time.
of communication again, because
Right.
not really understanding what he was going through, and then she didn't feel like she was getting the attention she needed because he was over here doing all these other things, and so and then, but I wonder why get engaged so quickly at age 19. They were both 19, weren't they?
Yeah, that's a whole nother layer to it. Like,
Yeah.
Besides for the stardom and everything, they were kids, basically. Like it's.
These days, and even in that day, it was young, right?
Yeah, I think so. But I mean, does that affect? Can that affect people if you get married at a younger age like that versus like? I mean, you said already in this episode that we don't fully get matured, like our brains don't mature until we're like 25, 27. If we don't know ourselves and we're not at our full maturity, are we still going to be okay in like a relationship when we, are teenager?
It's a really good question, and I think again there isn't an answer for that because I have very good friends. I have several friends that met in junior high, maybe dated a couple times in high school, went off to college, came back and got married right after college and are together to this day. And I'm old, so
I have friends like that too that are
yeah,
doing
they've
great.
been married like 40 years, 40 years, something like that. And that's a long time to be married. So my cousin, for example, she got married at 19. She's still with her husband. They both have awesome careers. She's actually a therapist also. And she's been a therapist, though, for 20, maybe 30 years now, whereas I'm a new therapist. So, but they've grown together, and they made it work. They worked it out and made it work, but that's not the case for everybody. And as we've talked about before, when we're on the bullying episode, that we really learn communication patterns early. We learn it before we're even aware that we've learned it.
Okay.
So 0 to 4 is imperative. It's literally the foundational years for what are relationships? How do they function?
Okay.
What does a girl do? What does a boy do? What is a mom's role? What is a dad's role? How do we talk to each other?
Yeah.
Like it's so much a part of us before we even use the skills.
Got it.
And that's
I
kind of
remember that now, yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of what comes back when we find our partner, when we get married, and sometimes I've heard from couples that it's that when they get married or move in or commit, there's literally like a flip, like a switch that flips, because then it's like all of a sudden all those roles that we've experienced in our lives become a factor when they never were before.
Got it.
Because as a
Interesting.
boyfriend and a girlfriend, we don't learn those roles as kids typically.
Sure.
But as married people or as partners, we might learn that really, really early.
Wow. Okay. So that actually we might want to weigh in with you later, because we have an episode coming on soon about the effect of the pandemic on the kids between 0 and 4 or 2 and 4 or even past, because their world is completely skewed.
Oh, absolutely. I was thinking was thinking just that the other day. I was at Sunset down the street, and I was walking from my car into the building, and there was this darling little baby boy sitting in the cart, and his dad had a mask on and was pushing him out, and I thought to myself, wow, this little boy has no idea what expression his dad's face is in.
Right.
And he's not seeing it. And I thought, well, at home maybe he does. And then all of a sudden came into my mind, well, what if that child spends 5 days a week in daycare?
It's all masks.
All the daycare workers all are wearing masks. Probably the kids are all wearing masks. Maybe not the little ones, but the daycare workers for sure.
Yeah.
So how are these kids learning facial expressions and cues?
And especially in public. Because
Yeah.
it sounds like obviously at home you're going to be mask free and you're still going to get the normal interactions and stuff. But like, how does someone carry themselves in public? Are these kids learning now to be like emotionless in public, or like not really show? I feel like I learned with the pandemic how much emotion I show with my mouth, like alone, and now kids won't necessarily learn that if that's so crucial, like at that time, like they'll see just faceless.
Who knows what's going to happen? That remains to be seen, but it's definitely a consideration.
But some of these, so some of the teachers are finding that if they let the kid take the mask off to eat, for instance, they freak out because they're like, it's like having no pants.
Right.
Like they don't know any different.
Right.
didn't think about that.
One kid, when they were allowed to go back to school, thought he was going to die. You're sending me to school to die. You go to school and you die. If you do school at home, you don't die. Like a lot of it is the
Right. And who knows the messages that they were getting from
the
their
parents, because the
Or
parents were afraid,
Right. Or
Yeah.
even the television, because parents tend to not realize that even though their 2-year-old can't understand what's going on CNN or Fox News or NBC or ABC or whatever news you're watching, they might not understand it, but if they're in the room, they're hearing it, and they can understand voice inflection. They can see facial expressions. They see when, they cut out from the newscaster to the bombing that's, they're talking about, right?
They internalize that. Yeah.
Absolutely. They're affected by that.
Wow.
And the worst part about it is little kids cannot discern whether it's real or it's not. Because even as grown-ups, if we're playing a video game, we know that it's a video game, but our brain doesn't.
Really?
Really?
That's an interesting thing.
Yeah.
You think it's like part of life?
We know that it's a video game. We know it's not real. We know it's fantasy, but our brain doesn't know the difference.
Your brain operates as if it were real.
Absolutely. So like the fight, flight, and freeze,
Yeah.
the survival mode and the threat of the person coming around the corner with their gun, for example, our brain doesn't know the difference between the video game and reality, which is why the military uses those video games as training.
That makes sense. I've played like horror video games where it's like a first person perspective, and then it's like scary things come into your sight and stuff, and I feel actual fear because it feels like I'm in the game kind of.
Yeah.
And I just think I've never like thought about it how it doesn't separate, like we're not.
Whoa.
I can't accept that this is like a in the TV or whatever, but.
Yeah, we're really off topic, right? but
Which
but
we
it's
do.
interesting, right?
But
Yeah.
But getting back to with this fiance, when she got kind of scared and felt like it was going too fast, and she said, could we just take a step back and maybe not be engaged but just date? And he was able to just flip.
Yeah,
I
thought that was really interesting.
Like, would you like some eggs? Like, they're still living together, but they're in 2 separate bedrooms. But he's being
so
all
awkward.
cordial, and they never talked again. It just flipped.
Yeah.
Strange that
It's a,
where's the emotion?
Could
yeah.
could it be possible that he wasn't actually into her that much?
Oh, there's a lot of possibilities. I wouldn't even begin to speculate, like, why. Because that's
Right.
just something that...
But somebody that can flip that quickly is...
It's curious, right?
It's kind of like maybe she was better off, right?
Yeah, I kind of think she was right to say that she kind of dodged a bullet there.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, because there was no discussion.
Yeah,
Not like,
just
well,
ended-
sweetie, why do you feel that way? Or how
Yeah.
could we do that? How do you see how that works? And, in all fairness, they were both young still, right? Were they, 20, 21?
21 by then,
And,
yeah.
Still pretty young, but at the same time, again, those patterns of communication were learned way earlier. In fact, this is on YouTube, right? This podcast?
Yes,
Sure is.
yes.
Okay, so I want to invite viewers to go to one of the I think it's called I don't know what it's called, School of something. But anyway, if you put into the YouTube search, Who We Can Love. It's called Who We Can Love, and there'll be several videos that come up, but the one that I want you to watch is the cartoon with the fish.
Okay, so
Okay.
is it the School of Life or something?
School of Life, that's
yeah,
what it is.
Yeah. All right,
Yeah.
so watch the one with the fish.
Yes, and it is School of Life, but put in the search bar Who We Can Love. That's
Okay.
the title of it.
All right.
Okay. I'd write it down, but Mary's got it covered.
I got it.
Absolutely.
I'm the
Thank you, Secretary Mary.
Reverend Secretary
Oh,
Mary.
maybe I should call you
Secretary Reverend Mary.
Mary.
Sacramary.
like sacred.
Like sacrament.
Sacramary.
Ah,
It does kind of sound like that.
Unless
yeah.
you're going to sacrifice me, that's a whole different story.
Well, true.
Okay. So,
Going to go.
getting back to our topic. See, I love the way we diverge, but the key thing that Jordan learned, and I'm so proud of her, is that wait a minute, I'm not always right. Okay, 'cause
huge.
she really was raised to think that way, and her mom adores her and she's wonderful,
Oh,
but she
nice.
just you know how it is, like
Yeah.
there's nobody. Okay, an Italian grandfather, an Italian mother, there's nobody good enough for your firstborn daughter, you know, and so it just becomes this sort of mama bear kind of thing. But the message that Jordan got was that everybody should come to you because you're a goddess, okay? And that is a huge problem in relationships.
On both sides.
On both sides,
Yeah, absolutely.
to not ever, to always think that it's the other person that is wrong.
Is that called like a God complex or something, where you think that you are God, basically, or?
There
I've
isn't a
heard terms
clinical
like that.
term called God complex. There's nothing clinical that
Probably
way.
a social media thing. Yeah.
But I could see where in social media it might be called
Yeah,
that.
I think people have like a God complex in social media because you have more freedom to say whatever you want, kind of thing. So they feel more self-important, and I think that's where it came from. But I'm not a clinical person, so
Yeah,
But do you, just in general, do you do couples counseling?
I do.
So do you, it's not only learning to communicate, but it's also how you phrase it, your delivery, right? It's
Yes, it's our tone
your tone.
and
okay,
it's
I'm writing that down.
what we communicate,
Okay.
right? What we choose to say. So words are 35% of communication.
Whoa.
that's a
I'm
very
writing this
small
down
amount.
too.
Yeah.
I mean,
So-
compared to what you
Yeah.
think it would be, you know.
65% of communication is something else. So what do you think about texting?
Oh, I hate it.
Wow.
Because people can interpret it so many different ways,
Absolutely.
and
So-
punctuation, and all that stuff.
right. So if all we're communicating is just words, right, then you might write down the words. I don't know. I can't even think of anything right now. But whatever words you write down. And then I pick up the text and I'm reading it. And the words are your words, but they're going through my filters before I hear them. Which is how things get read into it.
Wow.
Because we each have our own filters, which come from our past.
Like our experiences and stuff.
Absolutely. And mostly from, our young past. We don't even know about our filters.
So the 65% that is something else.
Yeah.
What all is it?
Well,
Obviously, your tone.
Yes, it's our tone, it's our facial expressions,
Oh.
it's our gestures.
Gestures, body language, right? Yeah.
Absolutely. And something that I'm not sure maybe some of the viewers might be aware of, but we have a sense, right? Some people call it a sixth sense. It is a sense. So imagine you're at the grocery store and you're trying to pick out a salad dressing, and I use that because there's such a bazillion of them. It's a whole aisle, right? So you're standing there looking at the dressing, right? And then you just feel someone behind you. You sense them, but you don't see them, you don't smell them, you don't hear them, you just sense them.
Yes.
And then what do you do after you sense them? You turn,
Kind of
right?
turn, yeah.
You orient.
Okay.
Right? This is our body orienting to what we sense.
Okay.
Right? And everybody can relate to that. Everybody can relate to that feeling that somebody's looking at us from across the room,
Yes.
or
Yes.
that someone's behind us. We feel it before we know it.
Wow.
Right? So that is called interoception, where we sense first. And in our culture, we're moving so fast that we don't always hear, and I don't mean sound-wise, but our body. We don't always hear our body, we're not always in tune with our body to sense those things. And sensing always comes first. Always, always, always.
Meaning listen.
Right. So
When you feel something, listen.
yeah. So for example, when I first arrived here tonight, right? Like there was a sense that you had, that I had. Our nervous systems were in communication long before we said hello. And they weren't even like present together yet, right? Because you were upstairs and I was coming up the stairs.
Right.
Right. So there was a sensing of our nervous systems. We're animals, for goodness sakes, first.
Okay.
You know, what makes us human is that frontal cortex,
Okay. Yep.
right? So that sensing is what's really, really important. And I was thinking about that a lot as I was listening to Jordan's podcast, because she sensed a lot of cues in those relationships that weren't good for her. She
Okay.
sensed it. She just didn't trust it, right? She didn't
Okay.
trust it and question it and wonder. In other words, if you take that and you transfer it to the analogy of the dressing, right, in the grocery store, she could sense that someone was behind her, but she never turned and looked.
Ooh, I like that.
Oh, that's really good.
Yeah, that's a really good analogy.
So we can sense, but we have to orient. We have to
Orient.
be curious about
To really understand that sense, it sounds like.
yeah, and it's we all have the ability to develop it, and we all have it.
Yeah.
Because like I said, we all know that someone's looking at us across the room if they're staring, you know, and we all know what that feeling is like. We all know what the feeling is when someone's behind us. But if we don't orient, right, our normal kind of design for human being is that we are going to orient. We're always orienting to our environment because our brain is wired to sense threat and to survive.
Okay.
That's
Yep.
how we're wired. So of course we're going to move through our world sensing, orienting, evaluating, is this a threat, is this not a threat, either flushing it or taking action to protect ourselves. That's sort of the state of our nervous system.
Unless you've been taught to poo-poo it.
Yes.
Were you going to say something like that?
Well, I was wondering if is it possible for our senses to be wrong, and that we think that we think there's someone behind us, but then we turn and look and we don't see anyone, or
Absolutely.
So what does that look like? I guess, like, so how do we know to trust these senses versus not trust, I guess?
Well, again, this goes way back to very early experiences.
Okay.
right? So if something has happened to us that kind of gets in the way of our natural way our body works, we could get thrown way off track, and the trajectory of our life could be really changed. And when I say that, I mean physical abuse, sexual abuse, any kind of like if our parent had a mental illness, or if they were addicted to something, because as you know, being around addicted people, what we know reality to be and what their reality is and what they might say reality is different. And so you know what reality is, but if you're a kid and it's your parent and your parent's telling you, oh no, that's not your reality, you don't really want that pizza, you really want a hot dog. I mean, I'm using that as an example because it's really benign, but
Right.
the child's going to start thinking like, oh, I shouldn't listen to myself and that I want pizza. I need to listen to my dad because dad knows, and dad's my protector. He takes care of me, and this is not a conscious dialogue that kids have. It happens unconsciously, and so they start giving up their reality for the other person's reality very quickly. It happens without our knowledge, and it happens very, very early.
And so that's what I was saying, unless you've been taught to poo-poo your sense, because I was abused, I was raped, I was told I was wrong. You know, I'm scared of Kenny, I'm scared of him. He's going to hurt me long before he raped me. You know, I'm scared. Oh, Mary, come on, don't be so hard on your brother. You don't really mean that.
Right.
You know, you don't think that. You don't. And so
It's exactly what I'm talking about.
So through the years, I've gotten into very bad situations because my sense comes and I think, well, that's just me being dramatic. That's me being Mary. That's me being wrong. Okay? And as a therapist, I'm sure you see this, but it's taken me decades to get over it. And it still is my first go-to, is to not trust that because it must be something wrong here. You know, like meaning, oh no, you don't really think that way, Mary. You don't really, even though that is so nagging that it just is. Like I would say to people, this is just how I feel. It just is this way. I can't explain it, but it's not right or wrong. It just is. That sense.
Yeah.
It's just there.
Right.
And so when people say, oh, you don't feel that way, it's like, but I do.
Right. Absolutely.
You know, and so it's taken years for me to honor that. And I would think in therapy, especially when it starts young like that, you know, my brother scared me, you know, from single digits on because he was so dark.
And little kids know what fear is, and they know when they're scared.
And I would run to my mom, and we're coming back to me again, but I would run to her and say, please help Kenny, Mommy. Something's wrong with Kenny. You know, there's something wrong. Oh, Mary, just, you know.
You're just a kid.
Just a kid.
Right.
Leave him alone. That's what, you know, that's what he wants. But he'd be in his room rocking and, you know, it's back and it's back. And he'd be talking to himself. He'd be under a blanket. The blinds would be closed. He was 7.
Wow.
You know, and I would run to my mom and to just leave him alone. And I think, leave him alone? That doesn't seem right, but you're 5,
Right.
you know? And so
Well,
you just listen.
You were quite a wise 5-year-old, it sounds like.
Well, the instincts, right? Because that's what kids have, right? But then through the years, it got squelched so often that in adulthood, it took a long time to really get it back, and it still doesn't happen naturally. I have to no,
aware. Yeah.
that's that's that talking, but this is real, and it's valid, and you know.
Yeah.
Anyway,
And sometimes we're off, right? Like maybe not about somebody behind us, because that's a pretty strong thing, but we might get a feeling about someone that might not be right necessarily. And so we do need to reconnect with ourselves to know, like, when is it something that I can trust, and when is it something that I should just let pass as a feeling? Because feelings aren't facts, and yet they're very important information.
feelings aren't facts, but they're real.
And it's
Right.
very important information.
Okay, feelings. I love this. I'm getting a free counseling session out of this.
Right?
It's all about you, Mary. Isn't there a
Catching
movie?
on. Catching on.
Isn't there a movie called
Called
that?
Something
There's
About
something
Mary.
Something About Mary.
Everything about
yeah.
Mary, it could be called.
Everything About Mary, aka my wedding in the future, right? Mary's gonna marry me, so
Reverend Mary, too.
sorry, Reverend Mary is going to be the one that marries. Yes,
Feelings aren't facts, but they have very important
I
information.
think that's really important.
Very
yeah.
important information.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we don't want to ignore them,
Right.
but we don't want to like run with every feeling either.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
So checking it out, like, I'm feeling a little scared. And then the orienting part.
Okay.
Right? So just like you have that sense of someone behind you and you turn to look, when you have a feeling of like, I'm a little scared, then you kind of got to check it out. Looking around in my environment. Is there a threat here? Right? Is there really a threat here? Right? You look around and is there someone walking behind me in the dark? No. Is there a boogeyman under the bed? No. Is there, is something going to happen? No, right? Maybe that feeling is something that we just want to wash over us like a wave, right?
Or maybe
Or,
somebody's messing with you. They're like,
yes.
Or
maybe
like
the fear
Jason.
is real. Maybe we need to be afraid.
Michael Myers.
Oh, Michael Myers. Yeah, I was thinking about that too. When you said so my dad made me watch like Halloween and like all those horror movies when
As
I
a
was
3-year-old.
when I was very, very young.
Oh, my word.
And I've gotten a lot better, but I still struggle, especially this time of year when there's sequels coming out all the time and they're everywhere. Like I have trouble with remembering that there is no threat. There's no one in my house, like sometimes
Of course.
because that's what I grew up just thinking, and like I got really scared obviously as a kid,
bet.
and it's hard for me to separate it sometimes where I'm like I think there's someone outside my window, or like it's just it's that kind of stuff. But it's
Well, those movies aren't meant for 3-year-olds.
no, not at all.
Right?
Like
so this is kind of what your aunt was saying earlier about how if something gets in the way, then you can poo-poo those feelings, right? And or in this case, those feelings were so big that even today, as a grown woman, and even though that intellectually
that there's
nobody there,
Yeah.
the feeling it's old, right? It's from our childhood. It's in our body because our body remembers. We don't. Our brain doesn't remember. Our body remembers. So feelings can be from the past. They can also be from right now, like real, and we need to know. But it's our job as kind of with our cortex and our executive function to discern that, right? And be the CEO of our own corporation, if you will, right?
And
we
that's
want to
what-
listen to all the parts, but
And
we
therapy
wanna
helps
make
with
the
that.
decision.
Sometimes
in
you
charge,
need
yeah.
a professional to help dissect that, right? Because we can't necessarily do it ourselves because
Well,
our
yeah.
body, still
Yeah.
has that feeling.
Yeah, and Freud tried to do self-analysis, and I'm kind of thinking if Freud can't do it, probably nobody can. Right?
He failed.
He did. Yeah, I mean, he has his quirks, but he really was a brilliant man, and he really is sort of the foundation of the things that we do. And yeah, some things were a little skewed, but he was on the right track considering that was brand new information. There was no such thing as psychology
Right.
until him. So
That's neat.
yeah,
to
but I
think
mean,
about.
if he can't analyze himself, I had a therapist one time that told me, birds don't see air, fish don't see water, and human beings can't see themselves.
Wow.
I
You
know.
can't see your own self, meaning.
Correct.
Can you explain that, please?
Okay, so birds live in the air, right? They live in the air.
Yes.
Okay.
So they don't see it. It's just sort of like it's just there. Like they take it
It
for
just
granted.
is.
It just
Okay.
is, right?
Yeah.
And same with fish. They're in the water. They don't they don't know whether their water's dirty or clean, or it's just they don't see the water, right? It's just their environment. And our bodies are our environment. And we can become more aware of various things going on in our body, but we can't see ourselves like right this minute, the way you see me. I could put a mirror right in front of me, like where you are, and I still would not see me the way you see me.
Okay. I'm understanding now.
Does that make sense? It's very
I did.
It's kind of philosophical and existential and kind
of. I saw something recently that was like the human brain is like the most advanced organism or whatever you want to call it that just doesn't even understand itself or something. Like, it's so powerful what we have in our brains and stuff, but we can't ever fully access all of it. Like, we can't understand everything that happens with it inside of it. And I think that's like really interesting.
Like the human brain can't understand the human brain.
It can't understand the human brain, and not to the full extent, because I feel like we're always searching for it, and especially our own human brains, kind of like what you were saying, like it's just whatever is around us. We all have different perceptions and stuff, but
right. Well, and both of you would not see me the same either as each other, even, because you're seeing me through all of the filters and lenses and experiences and that you have had in your life, and you're seeing me through yours, right? And so there's always that piece that's present. And so that's why as therapists, we really need supervision, and we need to check things out with other therapists.
Oh.
Right? So it's, we can even make mistakes. We can even misinterpret things. And so we have to really know ourselves, so that we really can take good care of our clients.
Good point.
And so if we don't have consultation with other therapists, then we could really make some pretty serious mistakes and not know that we're doing it.
Oh.
Because we're really good at hiding things from ourselves. Not therapists necessarily, but humans.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
There's a lot of layers of defense and denial, right? In order to survive.
Denial is one defense. Yeah, we project things that are ours onto others. We displace things. We do a whole lot of things that are good defenses, right?
They get us through sometimes, right?
They keep us alive. Those defenses.
Keep us sane sometimes too.
Absolutely.
Even though it's insane to do some of them, it keeps you sane in the moment. You know what I mean?
I absolutely know what you mean.
Okay.
And that's why it's important that, if we learned a behavior, for example, when we were young that kept us alive, we don't want to shame ourselves and say, "Oh, you shouldn't do that now." Well, maybe we shouldn't, but it was adaptive at some point, and maybe now it becomes in our awareness that maybe it's not such a good thing. Maybe it interferes with our current relationship.
Wow, that's so spot on, because I've been slowly over just even the last year or two really realizing, why did I kowtow to that person that much and let that person abuse me that much and be that mean to me, and people around me be like, why do you have that toxic person in your life? And at the time, accepting abuse and toxicity kept me alive.
Absolutely, because you just said it. Your mom told you, "Oh, Mary, don't worry about your brother," right? You had to depend on your mother for survival.
And so I wanted her
to.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? So we defer our own sense for theirs, because they're the ones in charge. We depend on them for survival, and we don't. I mean, what 3-year-old's going to put their own gut feeling over their mom?
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Even if the mom's abusing them, they don't do it.
You don't.
Mm-hmm.
And so,
so it's survival, right? You learn those patterns to survive, and then we wake up one day and we're like, why am I doing this? It's because I needed to survive.
And so later, like now, and even just with the death of my dad, which has only been 6 months, because he was really the last player of that group that told me, you're overreacting, you don't feel that way, shut up, don't talk to anybody, that kind of thing. So with
And
him
that
dying,
enabled my dad, yeah.
and enabled her dad that much, especially with the money and all that. So with him passing, there's been a freedom because I don't have that trigger anymore in physical form.
Absolutely.
It's still inside.
What's
and so
that freedom like?
It's foreign, and it's getting weird, but I'm starting to recognize, why am I putting up with this abuse? I don't have to do it anymore.
Right.
I don't have to worry about my dad liking me. I don't have to worry about him giving me money. I don't have to worry about them supporting me. I don't have to worry about them not talking to me anymore. All of that kind of stuff. But you're right, because it's actually making me forgive myself. This is like a really huge aha moment, because it just happened today that one of my clients said, why do you put up with the abuse from that other client? And I've talked to you about her, and I'm not going to say her name, but I just talked to you last week about
I have a couple names in my head right now.
Right. And why do you put up with it? And all of a sudden today it was like, I don't have to, but then I'm down on myself because I have been, because you've gone over and beyond, what you should have had to do patience-wise, but now it's because that's what I needed to do to live at one point.
Absolutely. It was survival.
Yeah.
And thank God you had that. Thank God you were able to tolerate that and not go crazy yourself.
So there you go.
Yeah.
And that's why it's taken so long, though.
Yes. Yes.
'Cause
it is a pattern that when we develop it is difficult to change, which is why therapy is so helpful, because we need support when we're wanting to change. Because the funny thing about human beings is, even if we want to change, like really want to change, we will work really hard not to, unconsciously.
Because it's familiar the other way, or?
No, it's one of our defenses. It's just a defense. It's like, What do you mean you're going to change? Like, we're fine just the way we are, right? There's that part of us.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So
and
to have
and we're not conscious that we're sabotaging ourselves, but it happens. You look like you know what I'm talking about, huh, Katie?
Well, I was thinking, like, when people tell me they critique others, and sometimes people get defensive about like the critiques and stuff. So that's what I was kind of like processing. It's if you're being told that what you're doing is wrong, even though it's like the survival of what you're saying, the defensiveness like shoots up.
Yeah.
Pretty much, where you're like, no, you're not. I've had lots of experiences like that where I've just gotten really defensive in retrospect with situations that I didn't need to be, because I was defending, I guess this is another aha moment, I was defending my previous self.
Yes.
Because you had
Very
to.
good.
Thank you.
Look at that insight right here on the podcast.
But
you had to defend yourself with your dad and with your
Right.
scenario, with your dynamics in the family. There was no way. You had to have that reaction, like, no,
Yeah, and I think of, like, especially when my dad died, I was going through like a lot of depression and stuff, and I acted out like at work and stuff, and it's at the time I was very self-righteous, because I was like, no, you guys don't know what I've been through, like that kind of stuff. But in retrospect, I didn't have to. They weren't coming at me because they were trying to come at me. They were just seeing some behavior, and then it wasn't good. It wasn't what their experiences allowed or wanted.
Think about how you needed that protective part of yourself to protect you. Right? Even today, regardless of what we've been through in our past, we have a protective part, and it's a good thing we have it, right? It's the part that orients, is there someone behind me?
Okay.
And if there is, and we might need to run, right? That's our natural protective part. Sometimes that part gets a little too developed, because we're constantly having to protect ourselves when our parents supposed to be protecting us, but they're not. We're having to protect ourselves from our parent, like you were just saying. And then what happened when your dad passed was like, you didn't have to be afraid of protecting yourself anymore.
Yeah, it came out like harder, I think.
I bet.
and just for littler situations that weren't anywhere near the level that he was, but just anything that kind of rubbed me the wrong way, I was very, very defensive about. And it could have also been part of the depression too that like let it out, but I think it was very much related to the fact that I finally could.
Well, and you say that like this is what I used to do. So how did that change for you?
I try to think before I speak, or I try to see where the other person is coming from. You know, like if they're critiquing me and if they're they don't seem like they're being malicious, I try to take it for what it is, that they're trying to make whatever I'm doing better. But obviously it doesn't always come out that way, but I think it's a good idea to just like kind of take a minute to like pause and really think about what's happening before just reacting. I guess that helps me.
Yeah, and that's a great idea, to pause, right? And then you might notice, ooh, there's a protector that wants to come out and punch you in the face, but I'm not going to act out of
Flip
that
you
part.
off.
Right? I'm not going to act out of that part, right? And then, like, that is a way that we can train ourselves as human beings. Or I wouldn't say train ourselves. We really need help. It's like, you know, you coach people to do their, to get strong and to...
flex their muscles, like you have to flex your brain.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and there's a way to do it that's safe.
Okay, yeah, good
Right?
point.
And there's certain exercises that do certain things. And so you help and you teach people to do that. Therapy is sort of the same way, but in an emotional and more of an internal process where we have parts, like we have parts that want to protect us. We have parts that want to be taken care of, right? We have parts that want to be in control. We have parts that are really wise and just want to be like, yeah, I don't think I'm going to eat that nut or that bolt because, you know, I don't think I can chew those.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
You know, kind of rational.
Right.
And then, you know, we have sometimes lots of other different kinds of parts. We have different ages that might show up sometimes. So that pause that you were talking about, Katie, really, really important, because when we take that pause, we can hear those parts and then decide, do we want those parts to rule us, or do we want to make the decision, the grown-up, wise self from the cortex, right? And therapy can help us see ourselves in that way. Therapists don't want to change anybody. We just want people to be who they want to be, where they feel successful in being who they want to be, and help them to bring down the barriers that they see in their lives to, you know, kind of having the kind of life that they want.
That's interesting to think about it. You don't want to change them.
No.
You want them to be who they want to be.
Yeah, I love
That's
that.
why they're there, right?
Right. Yeah.
And it takes away that threat that we were talking about of like, oh, someone wants us to change, you know. Like,
Something's wrong with me.
something's wrong with me, or I don't want to do it. In my dad's case, he never went to therapy because he never wanted to change, and the threat of someone changing him, I think,
Was always their fault. Like there's something wrong with that therapist, you know. And also, Katie, I think you have more space and time now.
It's a vulnerable position to be in, to go see a therapist, right? Like, just asking for help. Like, you have to be really strong to be like, you know, I think I need some help, or I'd like to talk this through with somebody. You
I
got to
hope
be
it's-
really courageous.
not
I
to do
hope
that.
that's getting more common, though. I feel like people are talking more about, oh, my therapist says, and I go to therapy, and da da da. Like, at least that in my world, I used to think, oh, people are, I go to a therapist, ooh, weirdo. But now we all talk about going to therapy. And so is it getting a little bit more common to have a therapist, or at least talked about?
I think we're working on the stigma, but, you know, just like any big social problem, it takes a long time. You know, my husband was in the military. He was in the Navy. And, you know, those big aircraft carriers, in order to turn one, they have to move forward 1.5 miles in order to turn, right?
Wow.
So if you think about that when it comes to human beings,
in order to turn a human being, you got to go forward
Right. And if
slowly.
Right. And even if we want to change ourselves, it's we it takes something. And having extra support, having someone for you, right? Just for you, that doesn't happen in the real world, because everybody in the real world has their own agenda for you. They've got what they want from you that's hidden, and maybe even what's seen. And there is nowhere else, even with our parents or our siblings or our grandparents, that really is there just for you to bring out what's already in you, right? That's looking for you in you and reflecting you to you, so without any desire or personal gain for themselves. There's no other relationship like that.
See?
Yeah, even a spouse or significant other, because
Absolutely.
they're looking for your. I feel like you're kind of looking for yourself in your partner or something like that. You're not necessarily looking out for the other person 100%. Like there's a little bit of a balance with it. You know?
Yeah, I mean, you could.
Yeah.
You
it
are,
has to be, right?
I mean, you are hopefully, trying to help out your partner a little bit, but you can't be the person that's like their full,
Can't
like
be their
emotional
therapist, yeah.
person, emotional support or something.
Right.
Yeah,
You can't give up you for that person.
Which actually
You can blend each other.
brings
right?
us back to
Oh, were we talking about
part-
something else? Yeah.
no, but seriously, like in an
It's all
abusive
about
relationship.
relationships.
Yeah.
Honestly, this is all very connected. Yeah,
Yeah.
It
to what we
is.
wanted to talk about.
And that's what Jordan was doing with her final relationship prior to being married and in a healthier situation now, when it was so bad. But she gave up everything. Like, she supported him. He lived with her. She nobody around her liked him. They all didn't trust him. They, she alienated herself. So she just gave up everything.
She gave it all.
For him. And there was a love there because they were grade school classmates. You feel like you know him, right? Because the familiarity. Careful of that one over there. Our guy, Travis, you've known since high school, but meaning there's a familiarity.
Right.
I'm just kidding. Oh, okay. That
Poor
one.
Travis.
I know. Travis.
He's walking away.
He's walking away. But so, I mean, she stayed, though. And I wonder if it's because of their childhood friendship or, why do we stay? It's the classic situation with abuse.
Yeah,
that-
and it varies from relationship
friends
to
or not
relationship.
beforehand.
Yeah.
But it so creeps up on us when
Exactly. It
when
creeps up.
when it, there's a grooming process for it that may not even be necessarily conscious to the perpetrator.
Even the abuser, you mean, right?
Yes.
But they're just good at it.
Yeah.
Like, it's almost
Well,
natural.
and it's a kind of, there's a lot of power in that. And when we start feeling that power without accountability is corrupt.
So he had power, for instance, but he didn't have accountability because the person he was with was willing to support him.
And there was
Financially,
nobody else.
emotionally,
Yeah,
mentally, the
absolutely.
whole thing.
Yeah. And he wasn't reciprocating,
Correct.
right?
But it wasn't seen
And it was
right
okay
away.
with her. Like she said, she never said anything. She didn't talk about her feelings.
Yeah.
And now she does.
And now she does.
Yeah.
And let me just tell you, getting out of that was so hard, because you're afraid.
Absolutely.
There's so many layers to it. And she did it. And
Really
she's
strong woman.
yeah, really strong. I agree. Instead of being like, how could you get into that in the first place? No, you got out of it. Like, good for you. People go decades in situations.
A lot of people stay,
And they stay forever, And
she's. You don't always understand why, but they just something about abusive relationships, and you don't leave.
Well, and some of us learn very, very early that if we leave, or if they leave, it's death. Because it feels, we're built to connect. We're built to bond with others. And if there is an element of death, like a feeling of, grief, obviously, when we lose a partner or we stop dating somebody
Definitely, yeah.
or whatever, right? I mean, and I'm not talking about death, but when we break up, there's an element of that. But there, in people who have had abandonment as kids, right? And whether it be, they were taken to the hospital because they had some sickness and their parent left them there and they felt abandoned, even though that was what was good for them. It's really the experience, it's a subjective experience of the person.
Okay.
So it could be something like that, or it could be something very insidious, like their dad left their mom high and dry, and it could be an abandonment like that, or however the abandonment occurs. But as a child, it would occur as a death.
Okay.
And so as a grown-up in that kind of relationship where you all of a sudden kind of find yourself like, oh my God, this is horrible, like I need to get out of here. But there's this fear that it's like a death.
Okay, that actually that makes a lot of sense in her case and in many cases.
Yeah, and in some cases, there's just not a lot of options. There's not a lot of...
Sometimes you don't, financially, you can't extricate somebody,
right.
Especially if you're married, I bet. Yeah.
All of
And
that.
there's lots of relationships where there isn't a marriage, but there's kids. And then there's no recourse, because if you break up, then you're not going to get any spousal support because you were never a spouse. Sometimes the father's not even listed on the birth certificate. If he is, he may not pay, and maybe he does. Maybe you never see him again, but then you're left poor, literally like poverty.
Like you just have no idea where your
and
next dime is.
Yeah, and that in and of itself is scary, and it's also one of the needs. We need to eat, we need to sleep, we need to have a roof over our heads, we need water, we need certain things for survival. And so if we don't have the money for survival,
anything goes then
things kick in, right?
Yeah.
And lots of bad things can happen. And so sometimes it's just really complicated. It's not as easy as like, oh, it's toxic, you should leave. Well, that's from someone out here who's not living and has lived in the steps of there to get there. They don't have a true perspective.
However, you do have resources for people.
Do have resources.
If they do want to leave
I
and
do.
get some help, and
I do.
we'll put those, we'll link those in the description. They are, what are they?
So the first one's called A Safe Place. So here in Lake County, if you're being abused physically, mentally, emotionally, and you're scared where you live, you don't feel safe, you and your kids can go to the Safe Place.
Okay.
You can go by yourself, you can go with kids, and they will keep you safe, and you'll find a whole host of resources that Lake County and the state of Illinois have that can help you move on to a life that you want to have, that where you're respected and where you're able to feel free.
Do you have to, it's not like witness protection or anything, like do you have to change your name, or how do you get away from the person that perhaps is going to start looking for you?
Well, they have their way of protecting you, and they will keep you safe.
Okay.
It's guaranteed, and
Okay.
your abuser can't get in there.
Okay.
No matter how hard they try or how manipulative they are, they can't get in there. And it's a very, very big step to take. It's not, it's a really hard step for people to take. So, but if you have the courage to do it, I highly recommend the Safe Place here in Lake County. And if you already know that you want a divorce and you, or you're just contemplating it, maybe you just don't know if really that's the right thing, the Lilac Tree has wonderful, wonderful programs. they can connect you with attorneys. They can answer your questions. They have support groups.
Okay.
All sorts of
Where is
great
that
resources.
located? I haven't heard of
believe
that one.
Highland Park.
Okay. The lilac tree.
Yeah, it doesn't say on here, but I think it's in Highland Park. Most of their sources right now are online because of COVID.
Sure.
Yeah.
I love that, though. These people that are in there, doing a place like the Safe Place, for instance, or like the Lake County Haven, or like youth and family counseling. Counseling for all. You don't turn anybody away because of finances or,
We don't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Everybody needs to have somebody, and sometimes we can't afford it.
So, counseling for all. Nobody is discriminated against because they may not be able to afford therapy. So,
We just don't do crisis counseling at our agency.
which
So,
is like suicide meaning, or
well, if you're in a situation where you are being abused, because it's a safety issue and it's literally a crisis, that's not something that we can handle in our office. We don't have the resources to manage that kind of a thing, because safety is our number one priority.
so
And we just we don't have any security guards or anything like that would for safety issues like that. So that would be a crisis situation, and that's where the Safe Place can help, the police can help.
So they would maybe, those people, after they've been through the Safe Place program and
Right.
later want to process what happened to them, that's when they
Absolutely.
could come to you.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
when they have gotten safe, right?
Okay.
They have to be safe, because you really can't do therapy
When
if
you're
you
in
don't-
crisis.
right?
Yeah.
When you're in crisis, or you don't feel safe, therapy is actually not even good for you.
You're not going to sit down and discuss.
Well, and it's not good for you because you don't feel safe, and so why would you want? How could you open yourself up and
be vulnerable.
and be vulnerable when
When you
you
don't feel
already are
safe.
not feeling safe?
Good
right.
point.
So safety is the first thing. It's always the first thing. Safety, and
Makes
the
sense.
Safe Place is a safe place to go.
I like
It's
it.
appropriately named.
It
then, I think.
appropriately
is.
named.
Yes.
Just like St. Mary's Loft of God.
I came up with that.
I like it. It has a nice ring.
Reverend Mary,
Tagline,
we are here. Let's all
19
pray.
Go in peace. 19 stairs closer to heaven, because you come up 19 stairs.
I heard that on the podcast. Very cute. I love it.
Very cute.
I'm not going home now.
Because she's closer to heaven.
Closer
Don't
to
leave.
heaven.
But believe it or not, we actually covered most of this without, going just with all those tangents it brought up, the things about communication and about your past and about your messages from childhood and about how to reorient and all that. I mean, it was beautiful and brilliant, and I feel like we can wrap it up at this point because you are amazing. Can you come on our show every week?
You are so kind.
You can be the
Thank you.
third. Yeah. Aunt, niece, and Carolyn.
Aunt, niece, and Carolyn.
And the dachshund.
And the dachshund. Perfect. Yeah.
We have our own therapy dog.
We do. So well trained. Yeah.
Anyway, is there anything else that you'd like to say to
I
anybody?
just want to thank you for having me back. It's so fun to be around both of you. You're just such lights for everyone that you touch. And so glad that you put this podcast together and that you're bringing this kind of information to anyone who needs it for free on YouTube. I love it.
And so does that mean you will come back?
I will absolutely come back.
Okay, next
Does that
week.
mean you like us?
But not every week. And yes, I do like you.
Oh, good.
Okay.
Oh, good.
My sense told me that.
Yeah, I felt good. There was no person standing behind me for that,
But you know that, right? You have a sense of when somebody's being genuine.
Yeah.
Definitely. Exactly. And I got that from you for sure. So anyway,
Mary, on the other hand.
well, I know.
I'm just kidding.
Try to crack this fence. Odin can't get over that fence.
No. No, this was really great.
It was.
I think we both got a little therapy while talking about Jordan's story too. So this was.
Sorry, Jordan.
But By the way, give Jordan a hug for me, okay?
I will.
Yeah.
I will.
Yeah.
I'm sure she'll. I'm proud of her, and I'm really
She's a
glad to
strong,
hear.
courageous
She
woman.
really is. She is. And
What a success story in terms of owning her own life.
I love it. I love it. And again, knowing her since she was 14 and seeing that, and I've felt that and seen that in her, but hearing it from a professional makes me just even that much prouder of her and just impressed. So, yay, Jordan.
Yay, Jordan.
Yay, Jordan.
If I had a pom-pom Jordan, I would shake it for you.
Oh my
We
God.
gotta get props for next time.
Next time.
Yeah, we gotta have it ready for all of our guests. We gotta accommodate their needs. You know?
Pom-poms on the list. Yep. Okay. All right.
And I love what you did to your studio. It's awesome in
Yeah,
here.
isn't it so
Looks
comfortable?
great.
Pretty, right?
Yeah.
I love the sign. Who made the sign?
Etsy, right?
Someone on Etsy,
Oh,
Really cool.
there's
not Etsy, the company.
Right.
the company made it. So
That'd be nice.
anyway, till next time, everybody. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening, and
Till
thank
next
you very
time.
much, Carolyn Parker from Youth and Family Counseling in Libertyville.
It's a mouthful.
Bye-bye.
My pleasure.
Bye bye now.